Hello everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 207. I have an article tonight from the Columbus Dispatch that made me rather agitated. Now, everybody understands who Les Wexner is at this point. Everybody understands that Les Wexner was involved up to his ears with Jeffrey Epstein, and everybody who's following this case knows that his involvement with Epstein was much more than a simple business relationship. Now, the author of this article we're going to read tonight, his name is Alex Fisher, and I think this is quite possibly one of the most tone-deaf articles that has ever possibly been published. And that's not even hyperbole when I say that. I truly think that this is one of the most tone-deaf articles in the history of articles. I mean, in the middle of everything that Wexner is accused of being involved in the middle of the Jeffrey Epstein fallout, this clown, Alex Fisher, thinks it's a good idea to pump Wexner's tires in the Columbus Dispatch. I don't even know what to say about stuff like this. At this point, anybody who is still coming out and singing the praises of Les Wexner should have their head examined. Start with an MRI or a CT scan and work from there, because you obviously have CTE or you have some sort of traumatic brain injury if you think that Les Wexner is the sort of man that you should be praising. What you should be doing, Alex Fisher, is writing an article that eviscerates him for his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. An article that eviscerates him for what happened to Maria Farmer on his property. But no, still more puff pieces, still more air pumping into the tires, and more gaslighting. All right, folks, let's jump into this article because it's one of the more disgusting ones that we've read in regards to when it comes to just puff pieces. It's just gross. All right, so this article was published by the Columbus Dispatch, and as I stated, the author was Alex Fisher, who is a guest columnist. The headline, Leslie Wexner's legacy is giving back to our community. No, it's not. Leslie Wexner's legacy is intertwined with Jeffrey Epstein. No matter the puff pieces you write, no matter the rehabilitation you try and undertake, it is not going to matter. Everybody knows who Wexner is, who is following this case, and everybody who is not following this case, believe me, they're going to be made aware of just exactly who Wexner is. And the greatest part about that, folks, is it's not just me here spouting off about Wexner, right? Just go back and read the articles for yourself. Listen to the episodes for yourself. And if you can come to any other conclusion than Wexner was heavily involved with Jeffrey Epstein's criminal organization, then I would love to see that evidence. Because let me tell you, what I have seen so far is damning. More than enough to secure a grand jury indictment, more than enough to get this in front of a grand jury, and certainly more than enough for this to be a RICO case. This week marked a milestone for Columbus' most prolific entrepreneur and our own Horatio Alger success story. On Thursday, L-Brand CEO Leslie Wexner retired after 57 years, a record as the longest reigning CEO on the Fortune 500 list. Now think about that as well, folks. Think about what kind of power broker you must be to be the CEO of a company on the Fortune 500 list for 57 years. Do you think that's because he's a cheery and happy individual? Or do you think it was because he was seriously connected and he had no problem putting his foot on people's throats and choking them to death? Also, you mean to tell me that a man who has been the head of this company for 57 years is going to turn over power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein and let him make all of the financial decisions, all of the business decisions? Why would he do that? This man's been so successful for so long. All of a sudden, this upstart shows up and he gives him the reins. And then he is going to expect us to believe that him and Epstein weren't that close? Sorry, Mr. Wexner. Nobody, and I mean nobody, believes you. Occasionally, the accomplishments of a single individual warrant attention. Yeah, or the actions of an individual warrant attention. And in this case, the attention that's warranted is a microscope over Wexner and the role that he played in facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of these survivors. In this instance, the accomplishments deserve nothing less than admiration for their scope and impact. Well, I'll look at it a different way. In this instance, these devious actions deserve nothing less than scorn for their scope and impact. That fits the statement more, right? I think that's a little bit better. I think that Alex Fisher should go ahead and change this all up, because what he's talking about here is disgustingly gross, the way he's puffing up Les Wexner, considering what we all know Les Wexner was involved in. Les founded 15 companies that have employed more than 500,000 people. Legendary brands like Henry Bendel, The Limited, Express, Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Bath & Body Works, to name a few. He also created companies in Columbus that have employed thousands more to support those brands. Yeah, he's also helped facilitate the abuse of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. He's also helped the money laundering of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal organization, in my opinion. Now, anyone who thinks that Wexner was just sitting around, diddling his thumbs, sitting there, just a lump on a log, you're out to lunch. This is a man that still has his faculties. This is the man that is still capable of making decisions. And when he gave Jeffrey Epstein that power, he wasn't giving the power to a stranger. He was giving that power to somebody very close to him, to his protege. I'm talking Obi-Wan, Luke Skywalker type protege shit here. Okay? That's how close they were. Don't give me the BS of, we were just business associates. That's a bunch of crap. Companies like Alliance Data Systems, Mass Global, and others that have further cemented Columbus's position as a leading force in the retail industry. Any one of them would make an individual's career, and collectively they have changed the landscape of the economy in Columbus and indeed the world. Well, I'll take a shot at that as well. Everything that Wexner was involved in, all of these businesses, all of these companies, all of these so-called great successes, all of it, okay, is overshadowed by his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and by the fact that not only was he involved with Jeffrey Epstein, folks, we're not talking about a guy who might have seen him at dinner every once in a while. We're not talking about somebody who would see him on the golf course and they'd have a chat on the back nine. All right? We're talking about his closest confidant. We're talking about his mentor. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein's doorway to the other side. Wexner, a lot more involved in all of this than the legacy media would like you to believe, in my opinion. Those who know less best know a leader who shies away from the limelight of recognition. Yeah, no doubt, he loves to stay in the shadows. He loves to operate out of the shadows. And for all of these years, he was able to do just that. For all of these years, he was able to facilitate Jeffrey Epstein's crimes on behalf of whoever was running the operation, whoever his contact was. But he was able to help facilitate that for all of these decades from the shadows. And he was able to do that because of his power, the extreme power that he wielded, not only financially, but the power of information. And remember, folks, at the core of all of this was the creation of dossiers and information on these people that were being blackmailed. That is more important and more valuable than currency itself. He is a leader who instead prefers to invest his time and spare energy into the avocation of making Columbus a better place. It's such bullshit. This is, these kind of articles are just, I don't even understand how this guy can write an article like this and look himself in the mirror, especially if he has kids. How do you write an article like this and then look yourself in the mirror knowing, just if you scratch the surface, knowing the relationship that Wexner had with Epstein? That's not even adding what happened to Maria Farmer or any of the other stuff at Victoria's Secret, etc., etc. Just their very close relationship alone is enough for the world of scorn to be dropped down on Les Wexner's head. But instead, we're still getting puff pieces by authors, and these puff pieces are still being run by these publications. It is just beyond me that these people actually believe that stuff like this is not going to be challenged. Les is fond of saying that, but for Ohio State, he would not have had the chances he's had in life. Well, but for Les Wexner, Columbus would not have Easton, one of the highest performing malls in the country, and Ohio's #1 tourist destination. So guess what? Because of that, it's all good. Everything else that Wexner did, we can turn a blind eye to it. It's no big deal that he facilitated Jeffrey Epstein. It's no big deal that he acted as a doorway for Epstein to the other side. No big deal that he was involved in funding Jeffrey Epstein and giving Epstein credibility. Because you know what? He built some malls, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the #1 tourist destination in Ohio. I mean, really? That's what you care about? That's what you think about? That's what you're writing about when you hear Les Wexner's name? Like John McClane says, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And the author of this article is certainly part of the problem. We would not have COSI, the #1 science museum. We would not have the world-acclaimed, one-of-a-kind National Veterans Memorial and Museum. So because of all of this, again, we've talked about this at length here on the podcast. All of these people wrap themselves up in their charity as armor so that when they get called out for their disgusting behavior, they can fall back on that and use it to help deflect the heat coming towards them. Oh, Wexner could have never been involved in this. Look at all the charitable givings he was involved in. Look at all the stuff that he built for Columbus. Meanwhile, these survivors have had their lives completely and utterly wrecked by Les Wexner, indirectly and directly facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's behavior. But for Les, we would not have the Wexner Center for the Arts, one of the top contemporary art museums. We would not have New Albany, ranked the nation's #1 suburb, and also the location where Maria Farmer was held against her will by Randy Bowie on the Wexner's property. How about you mention that in your article here, Chief? The Scioto Mile and the Scioto Peninsula would look very different, and we'd not likely have one of the top academic medical centers in the country. So everything's forgiven, folks. Again, everything is forgiven because it all comes down to the mighty dollar. If you swing the mighty dollar around and you use it as a cudgel and you use it to break your way into society, it does not matter what else you're involved in. You can be involved in a trafficking ring, you can be involved in abusing young girls, you can be involved in enabling Jeffrey Epstein, and all that matters is that the Scioto Mile and the Scioto Peninsula don't look different. The tone-deaf tenor of this whole entire article makes me want to put my head through a window. I'm just blown away by how tone-deaf this guy is. If the Dispatch editors didn't limit my word count, I could fill up the page. During nearly 6 decades as CEO of one of the world's largest companies, Les taught each and every one of us the power of getting involved. Yeah, that's pretty ironic, right? Because we're all getting involved now, Mr. Wexner, and it's definitely not to your benefit. So the lesson that you were teaching all of your buddies like this clown who wrote the piece, well, guess what? We've taken some lessons as well, and we're getting involved now. And you, my friend, have nowhere to hide. Questions are going to be asked, and questions must be answered. He doesn't simply give money, a staggering total of nearly $1 billion by my count. He teaches the importance of philanthropy. Yeah, again, because it's his biggest shield. It is the biggest shield you could possibly have. It's like he is shrouded in plate mail armor when he uses these charities to wrap himself in those and try and deflect criticism and try and deflect when people are taking a deeper look behind the curtain and into the shadows of his life. He'll always fall back on, the charities. And you notice the author of this article has mentioned the charities multiple times. They're trying to gaslight you here, folks. This is gaslighting 101. They want you to think that Les Wexner is this fantastic guy. And if you didn't know anything about the Jeffrey Epstein case, and you weren't following the case, and you had no idea just the kind of scoundrel and disgusting son of a bitch that Wexner is, well, you would probably fall for it. And so would I. This is just such a poor display of I don't even know what you want to call it. It's just gross. He has imparted on each of us the power of giving to the United Way, to the Columbus Foundation, to the Pelotonia, or to whatever moves your molecules, as he is fond of saying. Yeah, what moved his molecules was helping Jeffrey Epstein establish a child sex trafficking ring. That really got Les going, I guess, huh? Les has taught us that philanthropy, there it is again, philanthropy. Maybe we should make a drinking game. Every time we say philanthropy or charitable works in one of these articles, we should have to do a shot. Every one of us would be staggering around like drunken fools. Many years ago, he stopped taking a lunch break to instead dedicate that hour of each day to the community. Oh, what a fantastic guy, huh? He didn't have a lunch break? Breaking news. Welcome to being a blue-collar worker, okay? Try being middle management in one of these corporations. I can't tell you how many days I went without a lunch break. Am I supposed to get up and clap because this guy didn't get a lunch break? This article, though, is just absolutely ridiculous. On the weekends, instead of a game of golf or tennis, you'd more often find Les working on his hobby of improving Columbus. Yeah, working on his hobby of making his persona and his image bulletproof. That's what it was all about. He had more money than God, so the money didn't matter. He kept pumping money into the community so that he would have people like the author of this article come to his defense and try and gaslight the rest of us. It was no different from the way that Jeffrey Epstein operated. He learned from the master. Most importantly, Les has taught us the importance of culture. He has been one of the driving forces of the Columbus Way, the practice of community stewardship that is driven by shared values. 20 years ago, with his dear friends John F. Wolfe and Jack Kessler, Les co-founded the Columbus Partnership as a forum to advance the common good. To this day, he spends countless hours prodding us, encouraging us, and fueling community ambition as our chairman. Yeah? How many of you guys were over at Jeffrey Epstein's house? I wonder if this author was ever hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe we'll do a deep dive into him and we'll see what his association with good old Jeff was. Because we know Jeffrey Epstein was down in Columbus all the time, and we know that Jeffrey Epstein was connected to Les Wexner at the hip. So, who knows? As Les transitions from CEO to board member at his company, some might think he will have a little more time for golf. But we know better. We know that any extra bit of time he finds will be invested into his community. We know that he will always be one of us. And as always, Columbus will be better for it. I beg to differ. Columbus is much worse off because of Les Wexner. I don't care about the money he's donated. I don't care about the facilities that he's helped created. I don't care about any of that shit, okay? You know what I care about? I care that he helped enable Jeffrey Epstein's crime spree, and I care that he was one of these disgusting sons of bitches that was involved in Maria Farmer being kept against her will, okay? That's what I care about. Not his charity, not all of the things he's done in his life that so-called make him a success. Great, fine and well. That does not matter to me. Justice is what matters. And Wexner, you, along with your buddy Dubin and the rest of you so-called members of polite society, your day is done. Your day is done, no matter how many of these puff pieces come out, no matter how much they try and gaslight us. Mr. Wexner, we all know the truth. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow, and we will do it all over again.